The nurse stops Ali at the door. Not because she doesn't recognize him. Everyone recognizes Muhammad Ali, even now, even with the tremors and the shuffling walk, and the voice that barely rises above a whisper. She stops him because Joe Frazier asked her to screen visitors, to protect him from the people who want to see him dying, the ones who want the story, the photo, the final glimpse of a legend reduced to something mortal. But Ali isn't here for a story. November 7th, 2011, Philadelphia. A hospital room that smells like disinfectant and dying. The kind of room where machines beep rhythms that measure the space between now and never. Joe Frazier is 67 years old. Liver cancer, stage 4, diagnosed 6 weeks ago, given months to live, chose not to fight it. After a lifetime in the ring, Smoke and Joe decided there are some fights you're not supposed to win. Ali stands in the hallway. His hands shake, always shaking now. Parkinson's took his grace, his speed, his voice. Left him with tremors and silence, and the weight of everything he said when words came easy. The nurse looks at him with something between sympathy and skepticism. Mr. Frazier isn't taking visitors today. He's resting. I won't stay long, Ali whispers, voice like gravel, each word requiring effort. Does he know you're here? Ali shakes his head. The nurse studies him. This isn't the Muhammad Ali from the posters, not the young, beautiful champion who danced and predicted rounds and told the world he was the greatest. This is an old man with a destroyed voice and trembling hands and eyes that carry decades of regret. Wait here, she says, disappears into the room. Ali stands alone in the hallway. Hospital sounds around him, monitors beeping, someone crying 3 rooms down, a doctor being paged. The fluorescent lights hum overhead, everything too bright, too loud, too present. He thinks about the last time he saw Joe, really saw him, not at some charity event where they smiled for cameras and pretended the past didn't matter, not at a press conference where they played their roles, but really saw him. 1975, 36 years ago, Manila, the Thriller, 14 rounds of pure violence. 2 men trying to kill each other in 100-degree heat while the world watched. Ali won that fight. Joe's corner stopped it after 14 rounds. Couldn't let him take more punishment. Couldn't watch him absorb more damage. But Ali didn't feel like a winner. Felt like someone who survived something he shouldn't have. Told his corner afterwards that it was the closest he'd ever come to death. That Joe Frazier was the toughest man he'd ever faced. That he never wanted to fight like that again. But what he said to Joe before that fight, during the promotion, during the press conferences and interviews and public appearances, what he said to sell tickets and build hype and play the villain, that's what he thinks about now, standing in this hospital hallway, waiting to see if Joe will let him in. He called Joe a gorilla on national television multiple times, called him ugly, stupid, and Uncle Tom, a white man's champion. Said Joe was too dumb to be a real champion, too ugly to represent boxing, said things designed to cut deep, to humiliate, to make Joe angry enough to fight recklessly. And it worked. Joe fought angry, fought hurt, fought with something to prove beyond just winning, fought to make Ali take back every word, every insult, every cruel joke at his expense. They fought 3 times. 1971, Joe won, handed Ali his first professional loss, broke his jaw, hospitalized him, proved that all the talk couldn't protect you from a left hook. 1974, Ali won, 12 rounds, unanimous decision, but no knockout, no definitive ending, just judges' scorecards and the knowledge that they'd have to do it again. 1975, Manila, the fight that ended their rivalry and destroyed them both. Ali won, but both men went to the hospital after. Both men were never the same. But the fights ended. The insults didn't. Ali kept making jokes, kept calling Joe names, kept diminishing him even after they were done trying to kill each other in the ring. And Joe never forgave him. Said so publicly, multiple times, in interviews, in his autobiography, in conversations with friends. He said Muhammad Ali was the most vicious person he'd ever met. Not in the ring, with words, with calculated cruelty disguised as entertainment. He said Ali took something from him that punches never could: his dignity, his reputation, his place in history. Because everyone remembers Muhammad Ali, the beautiful champion, the poet, the activist, the symbol of everything boxing could be. And Joe Frazier became a footnote, the guy Ali beat, the guy who lost 2 out of 3, the guy who was never as great as Ali. The nurse comes back. He'll see you, but only for a few minutes. He's tired. Ali nods, follows her into the room. Joe Frazier lies in a hospital bed that looks too small for a man who used to be indestructible. He's thin now, cancer thin, the kind of thin that happens when your body consumes itself. His face is gaunt, eyes sunken, skin gray. But those eyes are still Joe Frazier, still sharp, still measuring, still ready, still angry. The nurse leaves, closes the door. Ali and Joe, proof, alone for the first time in years. The machines beep, the IV drips, time passes in mechanical rhythms. Ali stands at the foot of the bed. Joe watches him. Neither speaks for a long moment. Then Joe's voice, rough, weak, but unmistakably his. Took you long enough. Ali's hand grips the bed rail. The tremor's worse when he's nervous. I'm sorry. For what? Joe asks, his tone flat, careful. For everything. That's a lot of things, Muhammad. That's a long list. You want to get specific? Or you here to make yourself feel better before I die? Ali flinches. The words hit harder than any punch. I said terrible things. You did. I was trying to sell fights. I know what you were trying to do. Did it work? Ali shakes his head. I hurt you. For money. For attention. For my career. I made you the villain when you were just trying to feed your family. When you were just trying to be a champion. You made me a monster, Joe says, his voice getting stronger, anger giving him energy. You called me a gorilla on television. Called me ugly. Called me stupid. Made kids point at me and laugh. Made people think I was the bad guy for beating you, for doing my job. You took away everything I earned and made it about you. Ali's crying now. Silently, tears running down his face, his voice barely working. I was wrong. That don't change nothing. Joe's eyes are hard. You know what the worst part was? Not the names. I could handle the names. I grew up poor in South Carolina. I heard worse. The worst part was watching you become the hero. Watching you get celebrated for your principles, for refusing the draft, for standing up to the government. And all of that was real. All of that mattered. But you made me the villain for not doing the same thing, for taking a different path, for supporting my family the only way I knew how. I wasn't political like you, wasn't eloquent, wasn't beautiful. I was just a fighter trying to survive, and you made people think that was wrong, made them think I was a sellout, a traitor, a white man's champion. I never forgot that. Never forgave it. You took my legacy and made it about your redemption. Ali sinks into the chair beside the bed, his hands in his lap, shaking, always shaking. I can't take it back. No, you can't. Joe's breathing is labored now, each word costing him, but he keeps going. You know what I told my kids when they asked why Muhammad Ali hated me? I told them, you didn't hate me. You hated that I beat you, that I was the first one to prove you could lose, that I was the first one to hit you so hard you forgot how to dance. And you couldn't accept that, so you made me into something ugly, something less than human. made it easier to justify what you had to do to beat me. The room is quiet, except for the machines. The beeping, the dripping, the mechanical sounds of keeping someone alive when their body wants to quit. Ali reaches out, his trembling hand finding Joe's on the bed. Joe doesn't pull away, but he doesn't squeeze back either, just lets Ali's hand rest there. Two old fighters, broken in different ways, connected by violence and history and words that can't be unsaid. "I'm sorry," Ali whispers again. "Doesn't matter anymore," Joe says. "We're both dying. You're just doing it slower. But you know what's funny? Everyone remembers you. Everyone knows Muhammad Ali. The greatest, the champion, the activist, the symbol. And Joe Frazier? I'm the guy you beat in Manila. That's my legacy. Not my record. Not my heart. Not the fact that I was the only man to beat you when you were young and perfect. I'm just the guy who lost to Muhammad Ali. That's what you did to me. And I'm supposed to forgive you for that before I die? Give you peace? Let you feel better about yourself?" Ali pulls his hand back. "No, I don't deserve that." Joe watches him, something shifting in his expression. "You're right. You don't. But here's the thing. The truth. The thing I've never told anyone. I don't hate you. Never hated you. I hated what you did, hated what you said, hated how you made me feel. But I never hated you. Because you gave me something nobody else could. You made me prove I belonged. Every time you called me names, every time you said I couldn't beat you, every time you made people think I was nothing, you made me train harder, fight harder, refuse to quit. You made me earn everything, and I did. Beat you in 71 when everyone said I couldn't. Took your undefeated record, broke your jaw. Proved that all your talk couldn't protect you from my left hook, and that was the best night of my life. Not because I beat you, because I proved everyone wrong. Proved I was more than what you said I was. So yeah, you hurt me. You humiliated me. You took things from me I'll never get back. But you also made me great. Made me legendary. Made me the man who beat Muhammad Ali. That's worth something. That has to be worth something." Ali's sobbing now, not hiding it, not trying to be strong, just breaking. All the years, all the guilt, all the words he can never take back, pouring out in that hospital room. "I'm sorry," he says again. Worthless words, insufficient words, but the only words he has. Joe closes his eyes, tired now. The anger taking everything he has left. "I know you are. I've always known. But knowing don't fix it. Time's up, Mohammed. I'm tired. You should go." Ali stands, slow, every movement requiring effort. He looks at Joe lying in that bed, looks at the monitors, the IV, the evidence that this is the end. "I loved you," Ali whispers. "In my way, I loved you. You had a funny way of showing it." "I know." Ali turns to leave, his hand on the door. Joe's voice stops him. "Muhammad." Ali looks back. "You were the greatest. I mean it. You were faster, stronger, better than anyone. You deserved everything you got. All the fame, all the love, all of it. But you weren't the greatest because you beat me. You were the greatest despite the fact that you almost didn't. Remember that." Ali nods. Can't speak. Doesn't trust his voice. He opens the door. Leaves. The nurse is waiting. Asks if everything is okay. Ali doesn't answer. Just walks down the hall. Past the other rooms. Past the dying and the grieving and the people saying goodbye. Out to the parking lot where his wife is waiting. Lonnie sees his face. Knows something happened. Doesn't ask. Just drives. Ali sits in the passenger seat, hands shaking, face wet with tears, thinking about what Joe said, that Ali made him great by trying to destroy him, that the cruelty had purpose even if the purpose doesn't excuse it, that they're both dying now, both broken by the sport that made them legends. And neither one won. Not really. Joe Frazier dies 1 week later, November 14th, 2011. The world mourns. The headlines talk about his 3 fights with Ali, his Olympic gold medal, his place in boxing history. Muhammad Ali releases a statement, says Joe was a great champion, a worthy opponent, a man who made Ali better. Doesn't mention the hospital visit, doesn't mention what was said. Keeps that private. That's between him and Joe. Always will be. 3 years later, a reporter asks Ali about Frazier, about their rivalry, about the insults. Ali's voice is barely audible now. Parkinson's taking more every day. He says, "I said things I shouldn't have. Hurt someone who didn't deserve it. Can't change it. Can only live with it." The reporter asks if Frazier forgave him. Ali shakes his head. Doesn't think so. Doesn't blame him. Wouldn't forgive himself either. That's the truth they don't put in documentaries. The truth that doesn't fit the redemption narrative. Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier never reconciled. Not really. They played nice for cameras, shook hands at events, smiled for photos. But the hurt was too deep, the words too cruel, the damage too permanent. Joe Frazier died angry, died feeling robbed of his proper place in history, died knowing that his legacy would always be tied to the man who insulted him. Ali has to live with that, lives with it every day, every time his hands shake, every time his voice fails, every time someone asks about the greatest rivalries in sports. He thinks about that hospital room, about Joe lying there dying, about the forgiveness he asked for and didn't receive, about the fact that some things you break can't be fixed. That's the cost nobody talks about, the cost of being Muhammad Ali, the cost of selling fights with cruelty, the cost of making enemies out of men who should have been brothers. Joe Frazier gave Ali the greatest fights of his career, made him legendary, made him prove he was the best, and Ali repaid him with insults, with humiliation, with a lifetime of being remembered as the guy who lost to Muhammad Ali. That's what Ali whispered in that hospital room. Between the apologies and the tears and the desperate need for absolution, he whispered, "You deserved better than me." And Joe Frazier, with 1 week left to live, looked at Muhammad Ali with those hard, measuring eyes and said, "Yeah, I did." That's the truth. That's the ending that doesn't get told. Not because it's not true, because it's too true, too raw, too honest about the cost of being great. Muhammad Ali was the greatest fighter who ever lived, but he wasn't the greatest man. He hurt people, real people, people who didn't deserve it, and some of them never forgave him. Joe Frazier died without forgiving him, died angry, died feeling cheated, and Ali has to carry that. Carried it then, carries it now, will carry it until he dies. Because that's what happens when you realize, too late, that winning cost more than losing ever could.